So let's dive into Walk Off the Earth. Man, there's so much to talk about. So the band formed in 2006. You joined in 2011. Do you remember the first time you heard of Walk Off the Earth, and how did you meet the members?
I don't remember the first time I heard Woat or heard of Woat, but there was this special show that my band from high school, the Lunateers, our big instrumental ska band, it was like 12 of us in it, was playing a festival called Ska Thaw in the winter in Guelph, Ontario, way back in the day. This is years before I joined the group. And on the bill was the Lunateers, some other groups, the Lunateers, Walk Off the Earth, and the Creep Show, which is a band that our girl Sarah had just literally, it was their second show with Sarah as the front woman. She had just taken over for her sister Jen because Jen started having kids and had to kind of step away from the group. So years before we came back together and did all the things we've done, we played this dingy basement dive bar, part of a festival thing in Guelph, Ontario, and that was my first moment of actually getting a chance to chat with Johnny from the group and see them do their thing live and see them using drumsticks on the guitar and doing lots of weird kind of fun stuff that anything a kind of antithesis of just stand there and play the songs from the album. They were even back then, right? We're doing some really cool stuff that way. And I always remembered that about them. But also Johnny's just like hustle. Like I remember he was trying to like sell me I think it was Smooth Like a Stone on the Beach at the time, their CD at the time, and saying, maybe grab a couple extra copies and sell them to your friends, and like hustling hard and being like, dude, this guy is all in, and really actually respecting and appreciating that.
Almost every band that goes on to have success has at least one member that's the hustler. Maybe there's a different member that has more talent, but there's always one member that is the business acumen behind it. I remember hearing stories of Chad Kroeger from Nickelback, where here in Ottawa there was the Bear, which was the big rock station, 106.9, and it was Kat Thompson was the head of the Bear. And I've had conversations with her, and she, one claim to fame for her is she was there way back before Nickelback was signed. So they independently released Curb, and Chad Crow, each member of the band had their thing that they were in charge of. And Chad Kroger's deal was trying to get radio play. So he would just independently contact radio stations. And Chad Kroger reaches out. He's a nobody, reaches out to Kat Thompson and says, "Hey, I'm in this band Nickelback. Here's our album. Here's the single." And Kat Thompson started playing independent Nickelback way back in the day. And, Nickelback goes on to be the best-selling band of the last 20 years. And she says even to this day he'll call her from the back of like a golf cart. It's him and Dave Grohl's driving, and he'll be like, "You're not gonna believe what's happening right now." Like that's the relationship they've built. But just to show that every band needs one hustler, or else the talent the band has doesn't get a chance to be seen.
Man, for sure. Like that's back to the whole like trying to prioritize business. There's a lot of artists that just want to focus on art. And that was another one of my big takeaways from music school, right? And there's a lot of people who were proficient in business who see artists doing their bleeding heart artist thing and say, I can make money on that, right? But you do need that person in the band to really be thinking about are we trying to really do this? Or like, what are our books looking like? Let's budget for this tour, like stuff that seems so obvious. I can't tell you the amount of folks that I know who, and again, you can't shade somebody for just being so passionate, like who
You
said, let's
can't you can't say budget to a musician. That's a scary word.
to anybody out there who's just like ever gotten together out of the sheer love of it and made music with their buddies and said, let's hop in a Sprinter and just go for it, especially in Canada, where you're driving 10, 12, 24 hours between cities sometimes. So much love and respect for that. But if you want to scale that up at a certain point, you're going to either learn a very hard lesson or really just have an opportunity to step back and say, what's the business plan here? How are we structuring this? What's it going to all look like? And that's something, yeah, that I will say for sure about Johnny has always been really top of mind for him. And that's the reason why he, when I first joined the band, he owned the back half of a studio in Burlington here called B-Town Sound, alongside our buddy Justin Coop, which is still a studio and does great things. We spent a lot of the early Woat videos are in this room with the red curtain, which is kind of looks like the Joe Rogan curtain. We did all of our early stuff in there and in the back there. And at the time, G was running his own label, recording local artists, and doing that at a high level, uh, while also doing the band sort of thing. So we already had such a good grasp on how to run all that stuff and approach that stuff. The group had done a couple Warp tours and had done a few things, and like you could tell that like right away for me, it was like, okay, these guys are. When I actually got brought in, years after the Ska Thaw show in Guelph, when I actually got brought in with the guys and we were jamming, right away, it's just like even on the emails leading up to it, it was like, what's the plan here? What's going on? Are we making money? Are we really doing this? How much prioritization can I devote to this based on how you're running things right now? So I'll always respect that a ton with Johnny. And all these years later, getting into some ventures of my own and stuff, I really am grateful for really just being able to watch the guy, obviously work with him over the years, but just watch the guy and the decisions that he makes and the sort of hustle mentality and definitiveness approach. That's another thing for artists. I think the act of being artistically definitive, whether it's in the studio and saying this song is ready to go, or whether you have a business decision to make and you say, fuck it, let's just go for it. That is one of many things I've learned from the guy in terms of just like making quick decisions, not getting too in your head, and just like, there's a Tina Fey quote, right? You can stand at the top of the slide and think about it all day long, but at a certain point, you just got to jump and go down the slide. And like that, I think, again, back to artists being so touchy feely and so in their heads a lot. I'm firmly of the belief that the best songs ever written, the best books ever written, the best art ever created, any variation of that we'll never get to experience, because that, unfortunately, that artist got too into their head and decided it wasn't good enough or moved on. And you know what I mean? So like, the stuff that we do get a chance to get out there and to be in a position where people are actually listening and waiting for, what a gift to have an audience that's waiting for more stuff from you, that you don't have to go out and be like, guys, look at this thing I did, it's amazing. There's people that already know that and they're waiting for your stuff. What a gift that is. So to use that as fuel to get out of your head a little bit and make decisions quickly and definitively, and know that you'll always look back, I think, at years back and have some element of cringe factor on what you did back then. But it's not about that. It's about what's next, I think. And yeah, moving quickly and definitively is kind of everything, because I know how artists are. I'm one myself, and it's so easy to just get lost up in your head and overthink everything and that whole process. And like I said, I think unfortunately some of the greatest artists of all time, we may never get to meet or experience their contributions, because they let their mind get the better of them. So,
Us musicians, we love to procrastinate, right? We just want to sit there and play our guitar and that's it. How did you find out that the band was looking for a drummer, and did you have to audition, or did they just already know your skills and said, "Hey, this is our guy"?
Great question. So a buddy of mine, fellow Lunateer, my buddy Tyler Norton, he went off to Humber before I did. I took a year between going to post secondary. Tyler went right to Humber. He's a trombonist, and over the course of that, he actually went out at an earlier stage with Then Walk Off the Earth to be part of a small horn section they added to the band for Warp Tour. So he was already on their radar, and Johnny called him when they were looking for new drummers. So this is would have been shortly after we finally kind of like dissolved the Lunateers, because I was going up to music school. Everyone was going to post secondary, right? It was time to end the high school band. This would have been very shortly after that G would have called Tyler, said, "Hey, I know you've been doing the music school thing. Do you know any kind of great drummers?" And I guess I was one of the names that he tossed out there. And it never really felt like an audition. It just felt like G and I chatted so much ahead of time that it just felt like, let's get in and just do this. Like, he sent me all the songs they were working on at the time. I went nuts, creating the best parts that I could to those. And really, it was just like, we got in that first time, him, myself, and Marshall, that first time, and it just worked. There was never really any discussion. It was just like, "Okay, you're here now. Let's go. What are we doing? What shows we got coming up?" It was that quick.
And was there a moment where it became apparent that you were officially a member, or you just stuck around and but oh, I guess I'm a member, or was it a clear cut thing?
You know what? I think it was that first year of us just kind of playing shows at the Red Rooster in Burlington and other kind of bars and various things like that.
Wait. You went from the Red Rooster to Red Rocks. Is that what I'm hearing? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Started from the bottom. Yeah.
Truly, right? That first year, I think, it's not like we got any new promo picks done or anything like that. I very much saw myself as in a support role to make sure that, this group could continue on and we could kind of figure out the next step. That next step ended up being us leaning harder into YouTube. And at this time, G was also starting to work with Sarah, engineering, producing her solo material. Away from the Creep Show, she had kind of and continues to have her own sort of acoustic singer songwriter stuff. So he at that time was also working with Sarah. It wasn't until and Mike Taylor had recently joined the band at that time. Mike Taylor entered the band via Johnny's sister. Here's the whole tangle of it all. Johnny's sister, who formerly was with Ryan Marshall, who was a founding member of the band. Johnny's sister, Francie, ran a thing called Stars Academy in Burlington, a dance academy, which Mike Taylor's daughter, Miley, was part of. And that's how, yeah, crazy interconnectedness there. But that was all happening, sort of thing. So there was clearly like this big reorganization of the group happening that I think in the meantime, they kind of satisfy everything on the calendar. Johnny and Marshall just kind of like kept things as the two piece. And that all changed when Sarah wasn't even officially in the band when we shot the guitar video, right? She was collabing a bunch, but at that time it was just G, Marshall, Mike Taylor, and myself. She came in for that guest appearance, and really, I think it was that moment of things hitting critical mass where that certainly felt like the right time to roll out the updated version of the band and get the new promo pics done, and you know, everything happened from there because like it literally was like I'll never forget shooting that video, putting it up online. I had recently gotten into Reddit at that time. You know, I don't know if it still is, but Reddit at that time was like one of the 3 or 5 most visited websites in the world. And I had just gotten really into Reddit, and we put up that video. And the next morning, I woke up in my room and opened up Reddit, and the top of the front page, number one entry, was a Washington Post article covering our video. And what a surreal moment. And I was like, okay, you know, you can have on Reddit, like there's everything. And then there's just your customized view. It's like, okay, surely this is just like the music subreddit and it's like my view and like, hey, that's awesome. Somebody saw it. No, it was the number one thing on Reddit, and it was a Washington Post article. And that was the moment of like, I think things are about to change for us.
That's wild. So that's in 2012. You guys released a video in which all 5 members are playing one guitar, and you do a cover of Gautier's "Somebody That I Used to Know." And within 4 months, this video has 175 million views, which you can, I mean, what does that even mean? It's so many numbers. And now today, the video that's been uploaded on a few different accounts combined has 215 million views. Almost no human being will ever experience that level of success, like that pinpoint moment where something is a global sensation. Can you share what your life was like at the very pinnacle of that?
Dude, that whole first year was just such a blur. It was literally just like, so at that time, Wout didn't even have like official management. Like we at that time we ended up calling the managers of the Creep Show, Stomp Records out of Montreal, they were like, things were exploding. We had to just like figure something out immediately. Like they immediately jumped on a plane, flew out to Burlington. We set up in Johnny's living room and just like went through it all. And it wasn't really too long after that we were just on planes for the rest of the year going around. One of the first things we did was go out to Germany actually. And in addition to kind of all this sort of like, who do we want to sign with or whatever, there was just all these appearances, right? TV and like going down and doing Ellen and all this sort of crazy stuff in this first year. It was a total blur. Definitely like sitting down my family and saying, as this guy who had just dropped out of school, and my parents are starting to get a little nervous about like what's going on here. Where's this all? I think for school, even in isolation for supportive parents, is like at least he's on a track and and he'll have something to show for it. I think coming home was tough for them because it was like, what now? Sitting them down and saying, hey, we're going to do Ellen, you know, was crazy. I say this too, which is funny. All the like sort of international stuff obviously was incredible, but like to get the first front page of the Burlington Post hits different, man. I swear. Like there's something about
That slaps.
that that normalization effect of like, you know, here's this Washington Post headline, and here's us on Ellen, and here's us flying out to Germany and doing their version of like Jimmy Kimmel out there and everything. But to come home and see it on a newspaper that we look at every day, and but we're on there, was like honestly, I would say is one of the pinnacle moments of that first year, because it was that, and like actually to my boomer parents who still weren't really understanding like the value of like digital and that being kind of the new medium, for us to start getting radio play, conventional terrestrial radio play, they were like, holy like that was, you know, for them and for a lot of my family who were small towners from Paris and Brantford, that moment of like, I heard you on the radio today. It's like they don't care that we got 200 million views. They heard us on the radio. So that now we're a big deal, you know?
I remember being 16 and working at a gas station and looking down, and on the cover of the newspaper, there was this young blonde kid, and it says, "This is the future of whatever." And it was Ryan Gosling as a kid who was maybe just doing the Mickey Mouse show, something like that. And he was from Cornwall, just a few cities over. And that's the equivalent. You guys are the Ryan Gosling of Burlington, is what I'm trying to say.
Dude, if I'm the Ryan Gosling of anything, sign me up. Sign me up. Isn't Jim Carrey? I know Jim Carrey went to school for a portion of his young life in Burlington, but he's from the area as well, I believe. Like it's just nonstop talent out of Canada, man.
Alanis Morissette, Ottawa. So talking about Ellen, so you guys recreated the five musicians on one instrument live on Ellen. How hard is it to actually pull off that song in that format?
Really tough. Really, really tough. I mean, the video itself took 50 plus takes, right? Just to get things feeling comfortable and everything. So to go out there she had probably the single biggest daytime television platform at that time, right? So to go out there, well, everything's going nuts and our brains are like split in every direction because there's so much like, yes, we're there in Ellen, but then we got to go and fly and do all these other million things and all this crazy stuff. It was a lot and definitely not our best performance of it, but it was what it was, and it was that first holy shit moment certainly for us of getting a chance to go and do that, and we move on from there. Ellen was sick at the time, so she wouldn't. I remember she fist bumped us. She wouldn't give a handshake because she was sick at the time. And that was also on a Thursday, which I believe she shot two back-to-back episodes, so she could have Friday off, and her team could have Friday off. Although who knows now? Maybe she kept all of her team there on Fridays and over the weekends. Who knows what the real story is there? But she gave us all guitars, and the joke was that I know you guys can't afford your own guitar each, so hey, we got you one for each of you, so you don't have to share one guitar anymore.
That's amazing. And rumor has it that the session where it took you guys like 50 takes to get the final video that went viral, that was like 14 hours. Can you speak about that? And when you got the final take, did you know you had something special? Like, could you have ever imagined that it would have gone on to do what it did?
Right. Yeah. It was definitely a marathon day. 14 sounds conservative, to be honest. By the way, as well, MC Beard Guy Mike Taylor wasn't ever supposed to be in the video. We set that up and arranged that as a four-person situation. He just happened to kind of, when we were on hour 10, 11, 12, he was touching base and saying, "How's it going?" I think he was trying to just chat with us, and we were not getting back to him. We were like, "Dude, we're still going for it over here." He just showed up, 11th hour style, literally 11th hour, and that wound up being probably like the most viral element of the whole video, right? But I don't think we actually, there's some videos where, especially ones that are like high stakes and where there's like, really moving variables involved. Usually in that sense, when you got it, and it's like a huge relief moment or a huge celebration moment. I don't think there was that with that one. I think we were so sort of like just like zoned by hour 12, 13, 14 that it wasn't until we were watching things back that we said, this is the one. By the way, as well, like none of us thought it was going to be some breakthrough video of any sort, which I think there's something to be said about that. You hear about people, whether it's a hit song or a hit, really anything, that was one thing that they just tossed out into the world and they moved on, and they're 5 projects later, they hear that went out and ended up doing crazy things. That was definitely the experience for us. We put it out there. We thought it'd be cool, but we didn't necessarily think it was going to be this. How can you really expect that, right? It's even back then, let alone today, trying to get a video to go viral. But how can you expect that it's going to do that? We just thought, cool, this is going to be another thing. Let's move on. Let's plan out the next shoot. Let's plan out the next shows. Let's figure out the next stuff. And it just stopped us all in our tracks, and we just had to just ride that wave. And I say ride the wave, but what I really mean is work our asses off. I should really make sure to delineate those two, because at the same time, our video took off. That kind of same month, there was this lady who was crying on the toilet about how much she loved her cat or something, and she sang this little song, and she ended up like selling shirts. Props to her. She like capitalized as much as she could. But I think about that a lot too, because it's like she had actual 15 minutes, right? She had her 15 minutes. She made a couple bucks, I'm sure, on the shirts or whatever, and then she was gone. Us as a group of folks who truly never thought we were gonna get a chance to make it at this level, right? We all wanted to, we all hoped to, but as if, right, just by the numbers, right? Most people assume that that's just never going to happen. Same with like pro sports or anything like that, right? It's just like, I guess the difference here being that like we're an independent band that is having success that we need to kind of like drive ourselves here, right? So case in point, the blow up happens and it's like there was this kind of collective, let's buckle the hell down here. And like this 15 minutes that we've got right now, we are going to stretch that into, literally, I can say that now, stretch it into 15 years plus, out of sheer stubbornness, determination, hard work, and just like willingness to want to always keep eyes on what's coming next. I think, you know, whether that's a new social media platform or a new format that's working and it's really sticky amongst new viewers, or anything, any combination of things that involves staying tapped in and staying finger on the pulse and staying current. I think we've done a hell of a job at continuing to put the work in to be able to test those waters enough to be able to stay in people's faces, really. I mean, isn't that what it's all about these days, right? Attention economy. If we're not doing our best to get in people's faces and grab their attention on the doom scroll on the timeline, someone else is going to come and take that spot. And there sure is no shortage of, especially these days, talent out there, that people that could come by and steal that attention away from us. So I think that if nothing else, that work ethic, that sort of unwillingness to want to not have this life and hold on to this life and create new opportunities for ourselves over all these years, despite losing members, despite X, Y, and Z ups and downs, I think we continue to kind of default to a spot that is what's next, what's going on, what's the next thing, and how do we action it. And for as much as it's been nice to, as a group that started by wearing every hat ourselves, it's nice to have, you know, we have our studio in Burlington now, and we have a couple of folks who are in there helping us out and doing that and working for us. But by and large, we are still wearing every hat ourselves, and that's just kind of the way we've always done it, and the way that we've been able to ensure that everything goes out with the right WOTE stamp on it. So I don't think that that'll ever go away, even though, like I said, we're grateful to have more help these days, but that's really just more because the volume of output has increased as such, and it's kind of past the point of any one of us being able to hold down on our own. So yeah.
Can I point out that if you guys locked in your final performance of that song in under 10 hours, there'd be no mic in that video?
Exactly, man. What does that say about going with the flow and just kind of like
Yeah.
gut, right? Like we knew we didn't have it yet at that time. And truthfully, yeah, like now that I think back on it that you're mentioning, it's like him being that missing piece. There's a great chance that we should, honestly, I should ask you, we should look back at the pre-MT takes, because we
You
probably
should see exactly what moment he comes in for the first time.
we probably had a couple banger takes in there as the four of us, but something about it wasn't feeling like we had nailed it yet. And when he showed up, we had it within a couple hours. So man, that's a really good point.
When when you think about that number, 215 million views on that video, can you even try to grasp what that means? For example, I don't know what day it is today, Thursday. Tuesday, I went to the Sens game. So the Ottawa Arena is right down the street, and that's say 22,000 people. So, I look around the arena and, I just saw Our Lady Peace there, and it's like, okay, this is what 22,000 people look like. That is an insane amount of people. And then I go to the Rogers Center and see Roger Waters, and there's, I don't know what that is, 55,000 people. And it's like, okay, you can grasp what that number is. So 55,000 people in a stadium is an unbelievable amount of people. Now try to think 215 million. That's like, what is that, 20 times the population of Canada? Like if you took all of every person in Canada and put them all together, and then you did 20 times that amount, that's how many people watch that video. I don't want to explode your mind or anything, but what do those numbers mean to you, if anything?
Man, one thing I'll say as well is that like that might be the numbers on aggregate for like the different uploads of that on YouTube, but there were a bunch of years, it's changed since certainly, of course, but there were a bunch of years where Facebook video reposting was like out of control. Like we at one point tried to just track that. People like they weren't policing it at all. It was really tough. YouTube obviously got on top of that pretty heavily. Facebook never did. And like we're talking like easily conceivably in the billions of views in terms of like at one point we've tracked down like 300 reposts that all had views in the millions, right? So like you extrapolate from there, and it's I mean it's absurd that you can't possibly quantify it or relate to it in any reasonable human way when you see those numbers, and you think of the fact that like our videos have been viewed easily billions of times, right, by people in the furthest stretches of the globe. And it's like I think we try not to think about it because it's a total trip. It's wild to be able to have reached that many people, and really the hope is that we've been able to inspire. My biggest thing is like my proudest achievement as an artist is like hearing back from others that our music was able to inspire them in the same way that probably Blink 182 back in the day and what the Mars Volta did to me, right? So that is something I like to focus on a little more, but you can definitely get lost in the numbers. And yeah, that's it's I mean it's an insane number and an irrelatable number by any human measure. But then you go around the world and you like sell out rooms for the first time visiting a country you've never been to before that doesn't speak the same language as you. And then it starts to make a little more sense in terms of like, yeah, this is really caught on and this is really allowing us to do something that the previous generation of artists literally it was like that wasn't possible. You had to go through the well-defined label system. You had to have a big hit record. You had to be selling tons of physical copies. You probably, even with all that in mind, you probably still had to have gone through a place before and built up that kind of live track record. We're in a position now where you have that right viral hit and you can go and sell at a tour of places you've never been before on your first time through. That never used to be a thing. So crazy.
And what thoughts, memories, emotions come back to you now when you think back to that period in time that kickstarted this 15-year journey of success that you've been on?
Man, I think there's a lot to back to kind of the theme of trying not to overthink shit all the time, especially as an artist. And that just I think that's something that plagues a lot of artists. There's something in me that, you know, knowing that it was gonna make my parents uncomfortable as the people who were so supportive of me going into it in the first place and always have been so supportive of my music career, to think about the fact that even with that in mind, something at a gut feeling level wasn't sitting right with me about the path that I had started on there with music school and the whole thing, and starting to step back and starting to focus more on myself as a live performer and stuff was scratching this itch that felt really good and that I wanted to explore more and more and more of. So I would say beyond anything else, the fact that that little inclination, following that gut and going with that and really just trying to prioritize that over everything else, realistically is what has led me to the life and career that I've been able to have with this. And as a serially anxious person and someone who's battled with anxiety and depression a bunch, to think back to that, leaving the safe, once again, even in isolation, the safe surrounding of a music school, and saying no, there's something else out there for me that I'm going to really just kind of go for. That's what's required in actually having an opportunity like this, I think, right? Is hitting that point where you say, if you've been fortunate enough to experience something in life that feels really good and really is satisfying, creatively fulfilling, and whatever that is, and say, that's it, that's what I want, I'm going to go for that regardless of what it takes, regardless of how long it takes. I'm going to make sacrifices. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get there, because isn't that what life's about, right? Not everyone is a passionate person. I think about that sometimes too. Not everyone has something that they wake up in the morning and they're so excited to dive into, right? So to be a passionate person to begin with, let alone to then start to see a path for yourself that might actually allow you to get to this point where you might get a chance to live your dream. I might get a chance to feel some of the feelings that Travis Barker or John Bonham, I was going to say John Theodore from the Mars Volta, that those guys got a chance to live because maybe at a certain point in their life, they said, I'm going all in on this. And that's the possibility more so than ever these days of what can happen when you decide to go all in on something. Alex Hormozy, I'm sure you know who that guy is. He's like a business entrepreneurship. He's awesome, right? He's like, you got your like Tony Robbinses and like Grant Cardones that are like always trying to
He's
sign
the
up.
new guy, right? The $100 million deal book and all that.
Hormozy is like just so straight up, and he's not trying to sell you. I think he actually is probably trying to sell you stuff, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like your buddy chatting. And one of the things he says is what sets apart the people that make it and the people that don't is how long you're willing to be uncomfortable. How long are you willing to stew in discomfort, knowing that bigger risk, bigger reward, right, is what's ahead of you if you can stick with that longer than most. And I think that's a perfect encapsulation of the artist's journey and hitting a point where it says, okay, let me go the safe bet. Maybe I got a kid on the way. Maybe X, Y, and Z. I have dependents where I need a more reliable income or any variation of that. Yeah, but even with all that stuff in mind, I need to think about when I'm on my deathbed and I think back to the decisions I made and the path that I put myself on, am I going to be happy with the decisions that I made when I'm wrapping up my time on earth here, right? I think about that a lot too. And that's yet again another thing that you think about a whole lot. I am certainly anyway with a child now too. So lot to be said, I guess, to answer your question. A lot to be said for going with the gut, and it gets thrown around a lot. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason because there's a lot of people in positions of getting a chance to live their dreams and create amazing things from nothing that wouldn't be in those positions had they not said, you know, do I do this? Do I go out on a limb? Do I risk it all for my ultimate satisfaction and happiness?
My final question about the viral video. After the video goes viral, the two artists on that song, Gautier and Kimbra, both posted positive responses to your version. Is it special when the actual artist shows that they love what you did? Because maybe you love it, but every now and then you'll see an artist where the original artist is like, yeah, I hate new metal. I hate that cover. I hate whatever. So to get the actual green light from the artist themselves. And that was the single best selling song of 2012 as well.
So some people don't know that song went on to win the record of the year Grammy, right? In obviously in the US that year. That song in 2011 had already had its own rise and fall. Gauthier is from Belgium originally, lives in Australia, and that song had already won its awards, had its run, been through the radio cycle, the whole thing at that time. So I mean, it feels weird to say this, but like we sort of gave the song, we gave ourselves a career in the process, but we sort of gave the song a new bit of life, a new bit of sort of spotlight in North America that wound up kind of leading it on this path to him coming over here and selling an amphitheater run his first time over in North America and getting that Grammy and everything. So when it first happened, it first took off, it was funny because like between artists, between us and between him and Kimber and stuff, it was just all pure positivity and love. And like everyone is obviously having a huge win here. So it's great. Behind the scenes, we had just signed with Columbia Records at that time, and he was with Universal, and behind closed doors there were like lawsuits aplenty happening between like at that time labels didn't like it when a cover version or a repost of something, back to the Facebook thing, got more views than the original. We actually encountered this with our cover of Closer by the Chainsmokers as well. It was all like they reposted it at first, the whole thing all positive and all love initially, and then it's like, wait a minute, this is doing a little better than we want to see. And then it gets like, the right legal team can complicate anything that might not have otherwise needed to be complicated in terms of, were we licensing our downloadable, sellable versions of that song correctly? Oh, maybe we weren't, or maybe they want more because of this song has done this for our career, or X, Y, and Z. It got actually quite complicated. I was dating a girl from Australia at the time who I met in New York City, and I went out to visit her back home in Australia. Got a chance to see Wally Gautier in Melbourne, which was his hometown. No, we saw him in Sydney actually. He's from Melbourne, and see him and chat with him after. And same thing. It was like, what a warm guy, what a nice guy. It was a purely positive exchange, but we both knew going into that exchange that it was like a legal shitstorm happening. I think the vibe was like, let's let the people who do that for a job deal with that right now, and let's just celebrate. By the way, like he played that song middle of the set. Here's him playing in his home territory, middle of the set. Didn't get a huge reaction beyond the other stuff. It's such a different dynamic over there compared to coming from the part of the world that this song was everywhere possible and was still exploding and everything. Middle of the show, nothing crazy. It was clear that, like, really weird too to experience the fact that that song had already had its moment over there, despite having its first giant moment in North America at that time.
It's funny, the artists themselves, like the Chainsmokers and Gautier, they love the creativity and the honor of someone covering their song. But then you have the machine behind it that's like, okay, how do we monetize this? So, yeah, I think Gautier'd be happy with you made him a 250 million viewed music video essentially for his song. And gave him your version is a platinum hit in Canada. It was a top 10 hit on the Dutch charts. So I think he's cool with it. I think he's all good. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's talked about having nothing but respect for people who are that true artist above all else, especially above the business side. I don't know if you're aware, like in the years following, like that was like a moment for him where like all eyes were on, and he had a chance to be like massive in the States and in the whole thing. And what he did after he made all his money on that and everything was like get his like childhood band back, like his like teenage band back together, and they just go on like I'm sure it's small means like, playing multi-thousand cappers, but like they basically just kind of tour around, to my knowledge, tour around like Europe and Asia and Australia and do their thing. And he's really kind of like made a cognizant step back from what would otherwise have been him basically going the like pop star route, I guess, really, but by and large. So you got to respect that as well, because he clearly got a funny feeling from being so exposed and so close to the kind of seedy underbelly of the industry. And it's like that one guy, what was his name? Taylor something, that won American Idol the one year. And the guy who was like a crooner singer, right, from like New Orleans or something. And he won. And then he saw the contract and saw the deal points and met all the people, all the slimy folks, and was like, dude, no, like, I'm going back home for this. What are you doing? Like, you got to respect that. So my understanding, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that Wally actually, that's the path he took after all was said and done, and the kind of dust had settled from all the chaos of somebody that I used to know.
Before moving on, I just have to mention that listening to somebody that I used to know with a good pair of headphones, it might be my favorite mix and production of a song ever. So I don't know if you've ever like really soaked that song in, but it's absolute genius. There's so many like little things coming and going and moving, and then there's vocal tags. Somebody like that'll come in after, and it's the mix itself is alive. There's like a living organism that is that song while you listen, and the harmonies. And as it goes, all the little elements that have been coming in and out and ear candy and tickling and all that, as the song goes, they're all layering back in so that by the end, everything that had been there at some point is all in together, including the vocal tags, now the harmonies, now both singers are on it. And it sounds like there's strange instruments and harmonics. And I just have to point out that someone that went school for audio engineering, it's that's the chef's kiss. Like that might be the absolute pinnacle of a mix and production with headphones on.
It's so easy to overproduce things, especially these days, right? With samples and all the tools that are out there. It's really tough to make something that's simple, that doesn't actually have a whole lot going on, be so satisfying and be have so much success and have such a connection. So I think, yeah, totally, man. I've listened to it a million times, and that sort of story and journey of a song, exactly right, of sort of jumping through the hoops that your average listener has become attuned to just listening to pop music or whatever, that ticks all those boxes, but then still has a certain je ne sais quoi to it, right? That's like there's this magical X factor that, yeah. And I mean, certainly shouts to Wally on that one too, because he very much like was like self-produced that whole album's worth of stuff. I think basically all of his stuff. And a guy like that was like, whether he had somebody mix and master separate, was in those rooms too, just making sure that every detail was perfect. So yeah, that's I love, dude. Let's not even go down the path of geeking out about audio stuff, because totally, I mean, that's like, once again, to have something that can breathe and has tons of space but still feels whole and full and unique and interesting, despite being using the same 12 pitches as anything else. And no one's going to ever invent a new chord progression, but the way the sounds are designed and the way the whole thing is structured and slow dripped throughout is just like, yeah, like you said, masterful.
So we're an hour and 40 minutes in to a 2 hour interview, and we haven't started talking about the band's debut major label album yet. So just to give everyone a heads up, I have like 10 more pages of questions and there's 20 minutes left. So I'm gonna have to like rapid fire and pick and choose just so everyone is on the same page as us. So the same year as the viral video, 2012, you guys release Volume 1 and Volume 2, which are cover albums. So there's 32 covers here. I went and listened to the entire band's discography. From those two cover albums, some of the standouts for me, my favorites were Red by Treble Charger, The Edge of Glory, Lady Gaga, Party Rock Anthem, LMFAO, and Some Nights from Fun. Uh, Man, you guys have done so many incredible covers over the years. Do you have any favorites that stand out to you? It doesn't have to be from those two cover albums, but if you have to pick your three favorite covers you've ever done.
Oh,
That's hard, man. That's like a favorite child.
that's really tough for sure. You mentioned before too, getting in touch with the creator of a given song after the fact kind of thing, right? It's that shot to mind as you were mentioning that stuff just there. All those that you mentioned are pretty early days, so that definitely gets me back to like warm early days stuff. But thinking more about the wild experience that is, and how much the gatekeepers have gone away these days, where you can just put up a cover like Eye of the Tiger, for example, by Survivor, and then the top comments on that upload are the two co-writers of the song saying this is the best version of our song we've ever seen. Like, that one sticks out because that nothing feels better than that, and nothing is more kind of like verifies the efforts you put in than hearing back and getting that kind of blessing from the the creator of the song like that. Let me think beyond that. Man, it's so funny how it's all such a blur.
So I just yesterday, I'm watching all your videos. I'm trying to make sure I know what I'm talking about. And I get to the Smells Like Teen Spirit video of you not only just doing it, but doing it live. And you guys crush it. I sent it to friends like, how are they this talented? This makes no sense. So I don't know. That's one that just stood out to me from yesterday is the Smells Like Teen Spirit one. And I wasn't expecting the full band after having seen somebody that I used to know where it's just you guys on the one instrument. So I didn't expect a full band to kick in and get heavy afterwards.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we like to, obviously that's a that one guitar video is such a crucial part of most people at this point's relation to Woe, right? So we like to think about fun ways to reapproach that and kind of give the vibe of that, but task ourselves with the ability to make it more interesting and more difficult. And actually, now that you mentioned that, I think about one called it was the tune Rude by Magic that we ended up doing actually in Mike Taylor's backyard. And that was the first video that beyond the video, the version of Red Hands that we did with the big ass guitar, which is also in the Nirvana video. We did a cover of that song when it was the biggest thing in the world, and we part of what we did in that was sample the sound of the splashing on the pool, was part of that. In addition to the big ass guitar being there, so that was a really fun one to do. And then I'll just say generally, as you mentioned, these moments where we've had to reapproach kind of how to remix our own idea with the multiple person on one guitar thing. We've got this thing called the guiharpalele these days, where it's this crazy instrument we got a chance to design with a company called Blueberry Guitars. They're based in Montreal, but they do all the production in Bali, Indonesia. They reached out to us and they said, "Do you guys want to design your own instrument with us?" And we said, "Are you sure you want to do that? We're going to go nuts." And they said, "Let's go." And we did. And we said, "Let's come up with a tri-neck string instrument that is part guitar, part ukulele, and part bass harp thingy that has percussion stuff stuck in it and is just kind of this crazy Frankenstein." And we pulled it off with them. They did an incredible job, and using that both for live, but also to kind of create videos with, has been a real pleasure over the years. Songs like "I Don't Care," the Justin Bieber and Ed Sheeran, doing that and creating the right arrangements on that. That's one that I put together, and just kind of like doing this thing that looks so awkward and strange, and that, like, your average person, if you handed it to them, would have such a hard time figuring out how to get the best use out of this thing. For us to kind of like be all chilling and just like be using this thing like it's the back of our hand, I've always enjoyed that kind of juxtaposition of it being this crazy looking instrument, but we're all just like, it's like we've been playing it for years because we have at this point. So whether it's those one-off covers like I mentioned there with "I Don't Care," or something that I think we did a couple of years back, which was this medley of, we called it the Gee Harp medley. It was, and we did it live for a bunch of years. Was this kind of like, we started off by playing ding, 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 it's playing something I used to know, and then completely going off in 100 different directions with it and using a bunch of different songs. Those are really fun to put together as well, and they take a long time and they're challenging, but it's the best feeling, especially with our proprietary instrument in the mix, to be able to do that and put that in a time capsule in video form. But then to just, we just went out 2 years in a row with our friend Lindsay Sterling in the US. She's a big deal down there. She's selling amphitheaters everywhere she goes, and it was a pleasure to be out with her and to get that reaction every night from people who maybe had heard of us, maybe hadn't, and to end our show with this Guy Harpalele moment. And just like it, at a certain point in touring, after 10, 20, 30 shows, it becomes exclusively about how is the audience receiving this. So to really kind of see those reactions to it was always a great thing. One more I'll mention is the Beatles medley. That was a labor of true love for years. It was on the back burner and something that we chipped away at for literally years, 4 years probably, that we finally got to a spot that kind of met our standard of excellence. And we got to shoot it in this little pub in like a reggae pub in Hamilton, Ontario. And we heard back from Paul McCartney and his daughter on that one and stuff. And like, we got a chance to send a video message off to Ringo after that, because he had expressed interest and stuff. So like, again, those full circle moments, we'll never take those for granted. We'll always remember those as a crazy portrait of the state of the industry and the state of the world these days. That what used to be, once again, back to that era when Led Zeppelin was one of the 10 biggest bands in the world and every single person in the world knew them and they were like untouchable, unreachable. Now it's like that doesn't exist anymore. You're going to put up a video, and if it's good enough and interesting enough and cool enough, the original person is going to see that and be able to share their thoughts on that with you.
So I'm a big fan of Magic, and I had guitarist and keyboard player Mark Pelly on 3 interviews ago. That was my interview, and man, we talked about Rude. That single sold 12.4 million copies. It's actually on the list of the best-selling singles of all time, which is wild again for another GTA band. And you just talked about, the in with social media, it's you can actually reach out to the actual artists themselves sometimes. And this wouldn't be a legit walk off the earth interview if I didn't have some kind words sent in from the big boss man, from the head honcho, from vocalist and frontman Gianni Luminati Nicasio. So this is from Johnny. He says, Joel is basically my human Google slash chat GPT. If I need to know anything, music, history, stock trends, obscure 90s pop culture, or where to get the cheapest organic blueberries, he's my guy. I swear, he's like an elephant bot hybrid. He remembers everything and somehow always has the answer. He's my first call when I need to bounce an idea off someone, or when I just need to know if oat milk causes breast growth in men. Oh, and he's all right on the drums, I guess. That's from Johnny.
That is, I don't even know what to say. That was special. Wow. That's wonderful. I love that you did that, man. And that's hey, that's kind words from a guy that I look up to a huge amount, like who, like I said, beyond everything else, music in and music out, just as a true mentor in how to approach and how to be undeniable in business. Certainly something that I'm drawing from a lot these days too, working on this new venture of mine. Gotta say, love you, G. That's great words, and I so love, man, that you reached out to G, and shout out Seamus as well. I feel like I didn't give enough love to Seamus there as another guy who I think he did finish Humber, but his brother obviously is the frontman of the Sheepdogs, and at a certain point in their story, Seamus. I think you just gave him the call and said, dude, come on in here. Like we want you in. And like, that's been a magical thing for them and for him. And, nothing but love and respect for the guy. And like I said, I celebrate so hard the stories of folks that I went to school with, getting a chance to really do it and still do it this many years on, because it's not easy. And school is this weird time warp trip out where you think what you're doing in the walls of music school is going to be the best thing for your career, but by and large, I think that's actually not the case. Again, in my experience, I like to caveat that every time, because people go there and they get great things out of it and they're doing great things now. But I had an experience that I'm sure a good amount of people out there would probably echo if they did the same thing, or maybe have had the same experience. So I like to share that.
So you guys signed with Columbia Records in 2012. You released the 4 song EP. In 20 same 2012 you released the major label album. It stands for Realize Every Victory Outright, which is like a motto for the band. So is it pronounced Revo, like revolution, or
Revo.
Revo? I'm like, okay, I have a 50% chance here. I'm probably gonna get it wrong. So Revo.
Revo.
Revo is how you pronounce it. Okay. So you guys released the album, 4 singles, Somebody That I Used to Know, Red Hands, Gang of Rhythm, and Shake. The album debuts in the top 10. It goes gold in Canada. Somebody That I Used to Know went platinum, top 10 on the Dutch charts. Red Hands goes double platinum, top 10 hit in Canada. It's the 7th most played song of the year on Billboard's US Adult Alternative Songs. That's a huge deal now in the US. So my question is, I wanted to kind of lay out all the success right off the bat of that album. And then my question is, do you remember receiving the phone calls for those different successes? The gold album, the platinum this, the multi-platinum that. Do you remember receiving those phone calls?
Yeah, I think realistically it would have been like more emails, right? And
Oh,
definitely,
so old school.
I know, yeah, yeah. But for sure, man, like and it's again, there's a certain like decoupling that happens, or like loss of what would otherwise allow one to absorb the impact of something like that. That is, again, especially in those earlier years, like so many things happening at once, where that otherwise would have stopped us all in our tracks. And it's like, holy shit, that's amazing. We also are working on 12 different projects right now and have to fly out tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I think that news was part of a whole bunch of other really exciting stuff as well at that time. Of course, those things are like, once again, that 12-year-old version of myself or whatever age that wanted to be Blink 182 or slightly older in the Mars Volta would have just lost his mind to. And not that I didn't, but how wild is it to be able to say so fortunately that like those were things that fell in the midst of other big successes and working with huge brands and getting to go on huge tours and go and do wild stuff and work with artists we never thought we'd get to work with and everything. Like it's all part of this unbelievable, immeasurable scope of this thing that we've had a chance to do all these years at this point. So that's kind of a non-answer, but that's what came to mind there is that like, yes, of course it's incredible and insane that those achievements have happened. I think it's tough to sit with those when you're still on the grind and you're still so motivated and you still want to work so hard, because I think even something like that still slots into the category of like, that's great. That was then. What's next? What's coming up next? What's going on now? How do we hear news like that and keep grinding so that we can create more news like that, you know?
So between 2013 and 2014, on the strength of that album, you guys get nominated for 5 Juno Awards. So Breakthrough Group of the Year, Video of the Year, Group of the Year, Pop Album of the Year, Juno Fan Choice Award. And so there's two-part question. So number one, the first 5 nominations, what did it mean to you to have your country, it's Canada's Grammys, to have your country acknowledge your hard work and your musical talent? And then so those are 5 nominations, but no wins on the first 5, which is awesome and then a little heartbreaking. But then redemption comes a few years later when you get nominated for 3 more and you win the illustrious group of the year. I mean, of all the ones you could win, that's probably, I would think that would be up there as the best because that's an overall thing for the year. And that year, the other nominees were Metric, 3 Days Grace, Mariana's Trench, and Headley. So not a weak category by any stretch of the imagination. So the questions are, what did it mean to you to get the first nominations? And then what did it mean to you years later to get the actual win? And now, as I said in the intro, 2-time Juno Award winning band, that you have that forever. So what does that mean?
Yeah, man. Obviously, a huge deal as a Canadian musician to get acknowledgement from Karis and the Junos. Yeah, I think again, like that first set of nominations and that not happening. Of course, a bummer, right? But not something that I don't think any of us have ever assigned too much pressure and concern with winning an award or not. It's one of those things. People say this a lot. I realize, like, it's nice to have, but we're not going to change anything about how hard we're working and what we're working toward if we don't get that right. I will say though, being out with Mariana's Trench over the course of the Junos, we were like we did a full cross country arena tour with them, and we were sitting beside them after just playing like the Calgary, like the Saddle Dome the night before, sitting there in Calgary at the Junos as we're both up for the same award in that category and us getting a chance to do it. We never really we never really like had any sort of direct combo about it, but there was like some congratulations that may or may not have been all the way genuine. I don't know. But that was obviously a huge moment just to get up there and again, right? Any of these moments that pull us out, that force us to press pause for a second, step back and think about what this is all created and the sort of things we've accomplished and the millions of things we've done that are like, it's otherwise really tough to track until we're having a conversation like we are right now, or we win an award and have to stand up there in front of the whole country and talk about how grateful we are. Super special feeling. I will say again as well though, like I know there's people who treat that as like a be all end all, or like have been really upset in past about not getting nominations or not getting wins. And it's like, if you can build an audience these days and you have an audience that's going to follow you wherever you go and support whatever you want to do, awards should be so secondary to that, right? It's like, yes, of course it's great. And it's a great way to track things. And it's a nice kind of category to slot into, but like nothing is a greater award than having an engaged audience who cares about you and knows that you care about them. Like that is the single most valuable thing that I think any artist could have these days, any brand really. If you can build an audience, that's really, people call it a moat in tech and stuff, right? If you have a product, what's your moat? What's preventing others from coming in there? The most bulletproof moat is an engaged community that feels like they've been a part of your success, and that you're as emotionally tied to them as they are to you.
I remember seeing Sting get up and receive an award, I think a Grammy, and his speech was saying music is its own reward. Like the Grammy is nice, thanks, but regardless of this, the music that I made itself is what's most important. So that came to mind when you talked about that. What's cool about Mariana's Trench? So Josh Ramsey, the singer, he co-wrote "Call Me Maybe" for Carly Rae Jepsen. That song went on to sell 20 million copies globally. It's the single best-selling single of the 21st century by a female solo artist. And random story, back, I don't know, 18 years ago, I was a finalist on Canadian Idol, and Carly Rae Jepsen was the final female finalist the year I was on. So I have a random connection with Carly Rae. So to see her after that have two gold albums in Canada, she's big just here-ish. And then that song blows up globally. It's again the staying power of someone that's committed to their craft, regardless of what is going on around there. So just wanted to point out a random Mariana's Trench thing.
That's a great man. Yeah, Josh is the man. Incredible songwriter, unbelievable singer. Like it truly, like hearing that guy do vocal warm ups is like a out of body experience. It's the
He's
guy.
like the Mariah Carey of male singers, is how I see it. Most guys can't do the runs, though. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Carly Rae. I mean, it's you mentioned staying power. Like it's she just. I think she's bigger than ever in territories like Asia and stuff right now. Like it's really you got to appreciate the machine behind her, and just yeah the value of having a big song that once again like the era that that song was, I think is tied to so many people's certain thoughts and certain, whether it's a party or a breakup, whatever it is, people have this emotional connection to that, a song like that. And they will follow an artist like that for a long time. I remember like we did something, I think it was in Boston years back, that it was a bill that we were on with Panic at the Disco was also on it. And just seeing girls in the crowd who clearly were those same girls that got into them when they were 13, 14 years old, now as like 30-year-olds, but being going through all the same motions and the same body languages as a screaming young teenage girl. It was like, wow, the power of music. Just a funny example of that, right? Where it's like they're singing these songs that transport them back to this early formative part of their life, and here they are now, probably with kids and jobs and the whole thing. But they're there throwing all that away and just going for it and reliving that moment and having that nostalgia. And it's like it's so special, man. Nothing else can really achieve that or accomplish that in the same way, I don't think.
I remember back in the MySpace days, I would check the MySpace charts every day to see if my band's showing up there somewhere. And every day for years, the top two artists were these unsigned artists, Drake and Panic at the Disco. And no, every day for the lifetime of MySpace, I don't know, 6 years, I checked the charts. Where's my band? No, 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 no. Drake and Panic at the Disco. And then you see them go on to actual outside of MySpace global success. So that's again, I have all these. That's why I love talking to other musicians, because you say something and it triggers a memory that I haven't thought about in 20 years, and it's fun to relive those moments. So in 2015, you guys release your next album, Sing It All Away. Three singles: Rule the World, Home Will Go, and Hold on the Break. Rule the World goes platinum. I have so many questions about this album. I guess what I would ask is for Home Will Go, there's the version on the album, which is like a band version, and then there's a version that's like a remix on the Steve Aoki album, which is a massive album. It went to number 2 on the Billboard dance charts. I guess my question is, was it that you guys had the song that is full band like your album, he liked it, he remixed it, or was it his version, the actual song, and then you guys made a full band version of it afterwards?
Yeah, we had the song. We had the song, and we were in touch with him on a couple other things. We're actually working on something new with him right now. But we were in touch with him on that, and yeah, it just came to be the right thing. And him and his team created that version of it, and we had a chance. We were out in Sacramento with him. G and Sarah also flew down to Ultra to do it in Ultra Miami one year with him. But yeah, he really just enjoyed. We were sending stuff back and forth, and he really enjoyed that one, and saw opportunity to kind of create a cool remix. And the rest is history there. Yeah, that was a really cool thing. And we're now, probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, we're now working on a new thing with him.
So I definitely wanted to touch on this. Earlier, we mentioned Mike Taylor, Beard Guy, who was in the viral music video. So on December 30th, 2018, you guys announced that he had passed away at just 51 years old. You guys organized a free memorial and tribute concert to celebrate his life and legacy. Uh, there were Scott Hellman came out, you mentioned before, members of Bare Naked Ladies. For for myself and the listeners that didn't know him like you knew him, what can you tell us about him, about that concert, and if you have any favorite memories of your time with him?
The best thing about MT was that like it's funny because his identity as Beard Guy, the character in Woad, is that he was like very stoic and didn't say much and was just this like epic dude just by optics. The reality is that he was a total chatterbox and a total goofball who was just always saying the weirdest, most random, silly stuff. And that more than anything is what sticks out. And I think certainly hope he would be happy with what we put together, both with that memorial concert, but also just in the way that the following 2 years, we had a big decision to make right after he passed because we had dates on the calendar and we were like, are we doing these or not? We decided to, with the blessing of his lovely mother and his family, we decided to move forward and carry him with us. And for the 2 years of worth of live show following that, we had this moment where he used to play Bohemian Rhapsody. We would all leave the stage and he would have this epic moment where he would just rip Bohemian Rhapsody on the piano. And we'd come in at the end and jam it out. We were able to take soundboard recordings of him doing that and create a version where it was kind of like a tribute version where we would show on video screens him performing it, and have his actual performed audio playing through, and then we would still come back at the end and rock it out as a tribute to him. So we absolutely kept him with us as we continue to all these years. But just honestly, the how much of a goofball he was, and his just totally sarcastic and just a fun loving guy. Another guy who did big things in business, had a freighting company based in Burlington here that had done very well, and music to him was like the cherry on the cake of his already amazing, highly accomplished life. He had quite a thing going, and how sad for him to lose his life so early. We know he had respiratory issues and undiagnosed sleep apnea that used to plague him actually on the tour bus and made it really hard for him to go on the bus. And we respected his family this whole time in terms of not prying beyond that. But we know that that's what it was rooted in. Yeah, love the guy so much and miss the guy, and just a total goofball and yeah, a sweet man, and truly, I think someone that we continue to try to carry with us and think about what would MT do when we're making decisions and putting together new shows and the whole thing.
That's a nice tribute to him. So in 2019, you guys released the album Here We Go. There's a platinum single in there, I'll Be There. And then in 2020, you guys release The Journey Starts Here, which is the theme song to Pokemon Journey. Uh, Man, there's so much to talk about. 2021, you released the album Meet You There, four more singles. One of the singles has the song Love You Right, which features Lucas Graham of 7 Years fame. That's a 2 billion stream song. Man, that song, that's another one of those viral things that took off. My question is, did it feel cathartic to release something positive during such a negative and uncertain time during the pandemic when you released the album Meet You There?
I will say we didn't lead with this a lot while the pandemic was still happening, but we did very well during the pandemic because that was a moment I think for any artist and band that wasn't previously prioritizing all things social media. Holy shit, was that a moment of, wait a minute, we can't go out and do anything in person. We better triple down, quadruple down on our online output. For us, we've been doing that forever, right? So again, it was a tough time in a lot of other ways, and mentally it was so strange and the whole thing. And of course, not getting a chance to go out and perform in person was really tough. But what happened with us is were met with an influx of brand deals and corporate gigs that otherwise would have looked like us jumping on a plane on Friday, going out to the States or somewhere, on playing on Saturday, coming back on Sunday. That all turned into us either pre-taping stuff or doing live streams out of B-Town Sound, the studio that I mentioned. And we did very well with that. So the album just kind of came as a result of us sort of continuing all the things that we do throughout that year and having a chance to get that out there. I will say though, back to MT and everything, and certainly losing my mom a week later, we wrote a song actually that we ended up titling Mike's Song, directly about, we essentially wrote our catharsis there and wrote our way through such a tough time. And I was pulling deeply for him. I'll never forget being in the room with G and Sarah on that one, writing that, and as like, it was all happening, and for the music video that one, we had a chance to work with Music Counts here in Canada, our buddy Larry Davidson at Daddario Canada, and actually identify some schools and some kids who had shown musical proclivity and musical interest who otherwise wouldn't have had access to the instruments or anything like that, and surprise them in their homes, at their schools, with instruments as kind of like a thing that, like, MT was a big music education guy and was part of Music Counts and everything. So that was a wonderful moment for us to be able to kind of, have his spirit with us and go and do something that he totally would have done and would have loved to be a part of.
So between 2021 and 2024, you guys released Romeo Eats volumes 1, 2, and 3, as well as One Appetito. We have a fan question sent in. This is from Mike Lalonde, who's a local Ottawa artist named Petty Cash. And his question is, are there any new Romeo tunes coming? Which I find funny because you've released 4 albums in 4 years. And, but that's what you want. You want a fan that's like insatiable appetite for new music. So the question is there any new Romeo tunes coming? And to back that up, for our listeners that aren't familiar, what is Romeo Eats?
Romeo Eats is something that G started with his youngest son, Romeo, when Romeo was like super young. Like, you can go all the way back to Romeo being, I think, like 2 or 3 years old in the early ones, where they discovered early on, in contrast to their two older boys, Georgie and Luigi, that Romeo was just like a garburator. Like, anything they threw at him, he would just devour. So G has a pretty diverse palette, and I guess he saw himself in Romy and saw a fun opportunity for them to create some fun stuff to look back on years down the road together, and basically just having Romy try new and strange foods and prepare new and strange foods kind of thing. So that was what it was. And initially it really didn't kind of like find the right audience, but something happened over these years where Romeo's channel is now in the millions of subscribers, and it's a whole thing of its own, and it's done great. And then the music obviously naturally followed that, just based on who we are and what we do. And that winding up getting its own Juno nominations and wins and stuff has been a crazy thing. And to answer the fan question, I'm not sure. There's definitely a few songs in the can that have yet to see the light of day, but since Romeo and his two brothers have had their successes with Illuminati Sons now, they had a huge moment, with My Stupid Heart, where that kind of thrust them onto the global stage. And now they actually have their own band going, and they've just released a new original single. And for the last couple of years, they've been coming on the road with us and performing, 3 or 4 songs a set with us. They got their own thing going on now. So I think Romy is he's the front man of Lumi's Sons. So that's his priority now. But I'm sure he and G will continue to do that. G is never going to not be the foodie that he is, and I don't think Romeo is going to stop either. So I know they're really trying to focus on giving the boys every chance at success right now with that, because they've already had so much success for such a young group of dudes, and look at who their parents are, right? So it's that's been really cool to see, and the little moments that I've had to introduce music to my kid's life and have do little videos with him, kind of romping around, have been really fun too.
And so two things. One, man, the musical genes are strong in that family. And two, I think your son's starting to get into audio stuff. He's starting to react to different sounds.
Definitely, yeah. Probably my most fun thing about having a little version of myself now is to like try to trip him out with little weird things, whether it's putting the headphones on him and showing him stuff with cool panning, or like, yeah, you might have seen that video with the water bottle where I was making weird little kind of pitch bendy sounds, and he's just a real person now. He's just like, he's a year and a half now, and he's starting to really react and be able to kind of respond in his own little way to like what he likes and those sorts of things. Same with like, I got a hold of these toy drum sets from Walmart that are just like junk, but I put together kind of like a Franken kit here over in his playroom over there, and did something where I played along to our latest single, and he just happened to come in at the right time and add his own little touch and everything like that. And you can't plan that, nor would I want to. I will definitely not be pushing my kid into music. If he winds up taking a natural, liking toward it and wanting to really go deep with it, we're going to support the hell out of that. But knowing the wealth of challenges that lie in any prospective musician's life, if he wants to go the tech route or any other route, we are more than happy with that too. Sarah, used to joke a lot about how all the boys were going to become dentists, and that was it. Dentist only, no music for you, and let's go tried and true and nice high paying career path without all the ups and downs of being a musician. But turns out the boys actually like music a lot, so there we go.
They call that the evil gene, where you love music. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't avoid it. You're called to that career. You're drawn to music. It's referred to as the evil gene amongst musicians. Do you ever get tempted to just slowly drop a pair of headphones playing Dark Side of the Moon for your son? See what happens?
Oh
Take
man,
him to a whole new universe?
totally. I've showed him some of my favorite stuff. I'm really into like earthy electronic that has like really unique sounds and sound design, like groups like Odessa, if you know that who they are, or Flume. Really just kind of unique stuff. Really, like I'm obsessed with the kind of middle ground of organic textures that are like so inherently human feeling, and then like basically weird sounds that I've never even heard before, kind of thing. And Flume likes to say that, nobody's ever going to invent a new chord progression, but the sounds that they use to get that chord progression across, those can always be new, kind of thing. So some of my favorite stuff, haven't got to Dark Side yet, but some of my favorite stuff I've had a chance to pop on, and just so cool to see. I mean, that's it's like I'm more of a cliche every day talking about my kid, because just seeing him grow and seeing him react to things in this pure way as a brand new human experiencing something for the first time. Like, there's pressure there, big pressure, but it's, again, like anything else, try not to overthink it, go with the flow. And I think we're doing a pretty good job so far. And I just can't wait to lay more tools out in front of him, whether they resonate with him or not, to at least provide the tools to him based on this life that I've been fortunate to have. And just, drop an instrument here, drop an instrument there. We just got a little karaoke rig for him that has some voice effects on it. See how he likes that stuff. And if he starts to lean into any one thing, we're going to support the hell out of that, like I said.
You have the perfect drum kit for him from the Dua Lipa cover you did over Zoom. You got right on the kitchen counter, you got pots and pans and Tupperware containers. You already have his drum kit.
Go. That's kind of what we've built a brand around too, right? It's just like grabbing literally whatever's in the kitchen sink and going for it. So yeah, that's something that I don't want to ever lose touch of, especially with just doing fun experimentation stuff with him and just trying to get him thinking creatively at a young age.
When you get home and you're with your partner and your son, are you a rock star, or some schmuck that takes out the garbage?
Absolutely, the second one. Nobody cares that, you know what I mean. These folks don't care at all that I have done some of the cool things I've done, which I wouldn't want them to. It's that's the only way to go. I mean, I really try to pride myself on for as much as some people might think it's a huge thing and it's a special thing and wow, the allure of it all. I think we're all just humans at the end of the day. And like I was saying before, I think that's been actually quite a big part of what's ongoing success, is that we try to just be our real selves and try to just kind of be who we are, and not put on any sort of extra front or show of things. And I really do believe that's continued to be one of our staying points. So yeah.
So you mentioned loving Flume. Is that's Never Be Like You featuring Kai? That's Flume. So
Um,
funny story. I went to school for audio engineering as well as entertainment business management. And in 2010, there's another student in my classes, and that was Kai. So her name's Alessia. She was just, there's the musicians that are always in bands and playing, and then there's the quiet musicians that aren't really playing, but they're just way more talented than the rest of us. Like it seems like almost naturally.
yep.
And yeah, she wasn't even performing, and then suddenly she had a song that was in a First Choice Haircutters commercial. So she got, suddenly there's this theme song that she wrote, and from there, she's featured on a Skrillex hit. She's featured on Flume. Flume's hit is multi-platinum, went to number one a bunch of places, nominated for 2 Grammys. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I have a picture of her and I and her sister and another friend at the Mod Club at like a random dance night. And it's the people that talent isn't enough. You need talent as like a baseline, but it's the passion, the hard work. You need a little bit of luck for everything to fall in place. But just a random story about Kai. So
That's really cool, man. Yeah, I know she's from the GTA somewhere, right? I believe.
I think she was Burlington as well. She was GTA for sure.
Yeah. So what a cool thing to see. And like, yeah, once again, you got to celebrate every bit of Canadian talent like that. And yeah, that was definitely Flume's most mainstream success. Like that made it up like the Hot 100. I think he was on there for a bit with that, and obviously ended up winning electronic album of the year that year at the Grammys and stuff. And just really cool to see his whole thing and how much I think almost in like kind of like a Goche echoing way, getting all that mainstream attention from that. Like he's kind of since his stuff since has like he released a couple things that were like way left of center after that, which have gone on to be some of his kind of most revered things. Just a funny little thing where it's like these artists get the big limelight on, and it's like they jump through those hoops for a bit, and then that creates some sort of other part of them that wants to come out and do weird stuff again. And it's like he's my favorite man. I literally think he's like the Mozart of our generation, purely in terms of his ability to create sounds that are unlike anything that anyone's ever heard before. Like it's that is a really tough thing to accomplish, and there's a lot of people out there that are making way easier money by giving people repackaged versions of the same thing they've already heard a million times. But to be, and he's like the guy too. Like it's like, everyone has just so much respect for the guy because he basically has created his own genre based on how he's been able to approach the whole thing. So I just get like endless inspiration from him, and like I said, Odessa as well. Odessa, you might have seen him, man. Odessa did because Severance is very much a Washington State story. Bellingham is where Dan Erickson, the creator, is from. Also happens to be where the founding members of Odessa went to college alongside same years the founding members of Death Cab for Cutie, all from Bellingham. So
Ben Gibbard and all those guys.
yeah. So Dan clearly at some point along the way of them realizing that season 2 was going to be a big deal and they were going to lean hard into the marketing of it, hit up Odessa and was like, "Can you guys create what do they call it? Music to refine to? Is this mixtape they put together?" And it's this. I think they did like 25 minutes of original music, but they permutated it over an 8-hour mix to symbolize, "Hey, listen to this on your 8-hour workday," kind of thing.
The
So
the severed shift.
yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
So if you haven't heard that, I know it officially comes out tomorrow, but they released it on YouTube. It's been out for a while, and like when I get in the car, I'm like 7.5 hours in finally, but I just like I'll let it keep going because I love those guys, man.
We couldn't not come back to Severance at some point over 2 hours, right? I think we did pretty good, an hour and a half between both times talking about Severance. For Flume, I'm gonna have to start listening to Flume based on you know, your hyping of it because I only know Never Be Like You. And then there was a Tove Lo featured single that
Yeah.
was amazing as well. Those are, I guess, the two biggest hits. That's what I'm familiar with. And both those songs are awesome. So you'll have to let me know which album to check out for Flume.
So that album right there, Skin, that's the one that got the Grammy.
That's the purple one, right? There's like a flower or
That
something on it.
with the Foxglove flower, yeah. There's no better place to start than there because yeah, those two big songs came off that, but you do get there's certain tunes on there where you do get a glimpse of his kind of like more crazy sound designer side. And then he released two companion EPs in support of Skin that essentially were songs that didn't make the main album, but that he still wanted to push out there. So the Skin Companion EP 1 and Skin Companion EP 2 are both absolutely must listens. The one I was talking about that was really experimental for him that actually solidified and brought in a bunch of new fans. It's called Hi, This Is Flume. It's essentially like a mixtape approach. It's basically like a through composed composition that is split up into tracks, but has some really weird, really abrasive, really jarring stuff going on in it. That's just like legendary status. Like yeah, you just gotta. It's hard to explain. This is where words fail and music comes in because like it's literally otherworldly some of the stuff the guy can do, and it's like he's just such an inspiration, man.
Are you cool if we just rapid fire through a few more questions? So I'll just pop them out, quick answers, and we'll wrap everything up with a nice bow. So in 2023, you released the album Stand By You. You guys had 7 singles from that album. Two of the big ones are My Stupid Heart, and my favorite was Bet On Me. And I just want to say that I remember the first time hearing Bet On Me, I was getting in my car, I'm in the underground parking, and I'm about to start playing music on Spotify, and Bet On Me came up as the featured single of the day, something like that. And I'm like, oh, Walk Off the Earth. Okay. So I play it and I remember like the moments as I'm driving. And when that came on, instantly I'm like, that's a hit. Like that sounds like a delicious pop hit to me. So I just want to put that out there. And then for My Stupid Heart, that's the band's most popular song on Spotify. It has 86 million plays. And that's not even the kids version that has, I don't know, 25 or 35 million plays. Why do you think people love that song so much?
I don't know, man. I think other than it just being an earworm and having just kind of like this familiarity, like I think some of the best songs are ones that give you nostalgia. We've been talking a lot about these moments where that are so tied to people's listening, like your road trip you mentioned, right? And people's tied to these moments where they discovered certain music. I think it's really special when you hear a song for the first time and it gives you this nostalgia feeling where you're nostalgic about a moment that may have never actually occurred. There's some sort of special kind of witchcraft and wizardry happening there that allows that to happen. And I think that's plain and simple is like just like the plain and simple of us probably appealing to a wide audience because we just kind of come across as normal people. I think there's something to our biggest successes have had a strong presence of that sort of naturalness and sort of just like here's this thing that we liked that was hooky to us that we thought people might enjoy as well. And holy shit, it wound up being our biggest thing to date. Once again, to tie it all back as well, to not overthinking it, right? And being like, this is something good. Let's try to not overproduce it. Let's do what's called underdubbing, where when we're producing a song, there's a million tracks in. We then go in specifically with the knife to try to remove as much as possible to let the song breathe as much as possible. But yeah, that song was just a piece of magic, and obviously the boys' version of it took it to a whole nother place with this cute cover version that they put together, and that created this like insane viral moment that obviously added more jet fuel to the original song and has fully launched a career for the boys as well.
Over the last couple months, you guys have released two new singles. So there's Please Don't Go and On the Road Again. It's been a couple years since the last full-length Walk Off the Earth album. Does that mean there's a new album possibly in the works?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think it's these days it's more about I think you do what's called waterfall releasing, where you mentioned 7 singles off the last record. Really, that's just a matter of every time we want to drop a single, which usually we're doing every 6 to 8 weeks, to be honest, these days. You release it so that it becomes that next updated version of that ongoing waterfall release on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you want. Um, so we're at a point now where we're releasing stuff so regularly where we'll let that process take place, and then once we hit that magic number around 10, we'll essentially say these songs that have already been released as singles and had their own opportunities, we're now going to re-release these bundled as an actual dedicated album with probably a couple tunes that weren't deemed singles in the mix as well. So definitely have a new album coming, this if not this year, then next.
So to the shock of Walk Off the Earth fans around the world on April 1st, there was a name change. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean we're still reeling with that. It's been tough dealing with the Flat Earth Society. They're really their legal bench is deep. So we went back and forth for a while, and after about 10 million bucks in legal fees, we decided to say, guys, we can't keep spending this money. And Walk the Dog was actually Johnny's original idea for the band's name, which was pushed back on by his then bandmates and wound them up in a spot where, what's the feeling that you want this music to provide? You want to put the headphones on and drift away from the planet and walk off the earth kind of thing. Obviously, it was a joke, but that Walk the Dog was G's first idea as a name of the band. And something that comes up pretty regularly, actually, in like our VIPs and stuff, like about like the etymology of the band name and such.
Some fans were saying like it should be Walk Off the Dog. Like people are saying what it should be, which is cool. Is
I,
it
I
true?
I hit back to that with a comment. I said, "Guys, what the hell? I thought we were going with Run on the Moon," and people like that a lot. I was gonna say Walk the Moon, but that might be a little too close to home.
Yeah. Uh, so the actual term Walk Off the Earth, I heard that's a baseball term. Is that an actual thing? Are you aware of this?
I am not. I know that a walk off is certainly a baseball term, but a walk off the earth, I'm not. I didn't.
So I know nothing about baseball. I'm a hockey fan and a UFC fan. And when I was looking into it, what came up for Walk Off the Earth is there's the walk off, but apparently if it's the walk off that like wins the game itself, it's like you walk off the earth because you never come back.
Really?
Something like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I've never heard that, and I don't think my bandmates have ever heard that. But I am going to look into that now because if that's the case, we should be playing that up a little more. We actually were set to going back to like certain drawbacks of COVID. One of only a few that we had to deal with was we were slated to perform the anthem at the All-Star game or the World Series down in Los Angeles, and we were ready to go because they had seen. I don't know if you've seen. We did like we went down to Oakland, California, and did the Canadian anthem back when the Raptors ended up winning the chip that year, and all that stuff. Done a few of those moments over the years. We were going to go and do that. Didn't get a chance to do it, but man, if that's the case, we'll have to find a fun way to play that up.
You'll have to research to see if that's a real thing. That's what came up when I was like, how did, is there a story behind the band name? That's what it gave me. So maybe it has nothing to do with the band and it's actually a baseball term, or maybe it's not even a popular baseball term. But
Yeah,
that's what I found during my digging. Let's quickly talk about you guys in the live world, touring, all that stuff. So you guys have two solo shows coming up and you have two festival dates coming up. They can go to the band's website to get the details, to get the lineups for the festivals, to buy tickets. If our listeners right now buy a ticket to go to one of these four shows, what can they expect from a Walk Off the Earth concert?
awesome. Yeah, they can expect a lot of stuff they've probably never seen before unless they've been to a Woat show. We do a lot of kind of things that are atypical, and really to tie it all the way back to when I first played a show with Woat when I wasn't even in Woat back in the Guelph, Ontario ska thaw days. We're always coming up with new and weird ways to like create. You know, when you go see a movie and there's a moment in that movie where you're like, you just get like, you're walking out of the theater, you're texting your friend, and you're like, I can't believe I just saw Top Gun. I can't believe you saw this. We're always thinking about what can we provide beyond that kind of standard concert experience to wow people. So whether it's the Harpalele or whether it's a weird, we had this thing called literally called just a table for years where they had a bunch of random stuff that we just built and put together with a bunch of weird instruments on it. And we've always done these kind of strange medleys and everything like that. Right. So lots of medleys, lots of weird things, lots of playing instruments in incorrect ways, lots of playing strange instruments that you probably never heard of, like the saxo dig is one of our current favorites, is this saxophone shaped didgeridoo that we like a lot and have done some fun stuff with. Definitely just a lot of unexpected stuff in addition to probably a bunch of tunes that if you didn't know Woat otherwise, you're going to be like, oh, that's them kind of thing. Because I think at this point, this many years deep, we've definitely got that going for us with like, oh, that tune or that tune, it's these guys. Cool. So just having a ton of fun live and trying to really, as always, evoke the spirit and the fun of the videos that have put us in this whole position, but take it one step further with the live show and lots of audience involvement, lots of chanting back and forth, and lots of cool stuff that way. We give a ukulele away to the most excited and extroverted audience member at every show. We've been doing that this entire stretch. We've given away hundreds, probably close to thousands of ukuleles. So just nonstop fun for the whole family. Like I said before, literally from babies to grandparents. We've always had feedback that's like, the young person thing, of course, but like, on the older person thing where it's like, I haven't been to a concert in 30 years, or I've never been to a concert, but something about you guys, we've always, for some reason, had this certain magic approach to people where we received responses like that. And that continues right up to this day. And it's funny just to people tell us like, I just spent half the show looking around at the audience and seeing all these different groups of people having their own special moments, to these songs, but these people that are truly from all walks of life and all ages. So it's on one hand, it's a bit of a marketing nightmare sometimes because we don't kind of slot cleanly into one space. But on the other hand, it's like what's allowed us to, I think, sustain this long and also just like continue to reach new generations of people.
Yeah, when you make a Facebook paid ad and it's like, okay, what's the age range? And you're like, okay,
Oh,
I gotta leave it all. Male or female, I gotta leave it all. Where do you want to target it? Well, I gotta do the world. It's tough to market as Walk Off the Earth.
big time, big time.
So there's an official Walk Off the Earth fan group on Facebook. It has over 30,000 members, which is bananas. And there's a question that comes from that group. This is from Braden Kelly. Three-part question. What is your go-to snack while on tour? What is your favorite venue to play? And what advice would you give someone just starting out in the music industry?
Those are all great questions. Tour snack. We keep it really healthy. It's kind of crazy. Like it's like there's literally no junk food.
The anti-rock stars.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's we're talking like raw. Mine would be like raw nuts, for example. Like that's the most I would do kind of thing. Or like, kombucha is in there in the mix, like green juices and stuff like that. That's like the
This
extent
this is the most embarrassing part of the interview.
of
I'm just joking. That's how you guys have longevity is because you're not like killing yourselves out there.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. G and Sarah more than myself are like health food nuts. So I've actually reaped the rewards of that over these years for sure. That's a good question. There was advice for first
Favorite
time.
venue?
Favorite venue. That is so tough, man. For some reason, I always default to the UK. There's something about the UK and UK audiences that is just like hard to pinpoint why it's such a great place. But like shows at like Royal Albert Hall, for example, we sold that one out, and that was unbelievable. Getting a chance to play at the O2 Arena, right in London, was really special. Even years back, playing Roundhouse, which is really unique, like old Shakespearean style theater, where more often than not, the group will set up right in the middle and have people, in the round. Those always come to mind. Like they're special. Europe, obviously, too. Goes without saying. Like there's incredible venues like L'Olympia in Paris is unbelievable. Um,
I would assume Red Rocks is like
of course, man.
just I remember seeing a Incubus live at Red Rocks DVD, and it just feels like there's a certain thickness, like an atmosphere to that feels like it's nowhere else on the planet.
That goes into the category of just like purely surreal. Like there's I remember when we headlined Red Rocks and Marshall was there and said something like it was in between songs, or it was I think actually when the Mike Taylor tribute was rolling, and he just put his arm around me. He was like, "Can you believe this, dude?" And I was like, I didn't even want to respond because I was like, I'm just trying to do my job right now. I'll think about how wild this is after, but man, totally that. Venues like the Sydney Opera House, getting a chance to play Budweiser Stage in Toronto, what used to be Molson Amphitheater here in Toronto. Venues like the ACC in Toronto as well. Venues that either just have that acclaim on a global stage, or venues in the GTA that we all grew up going to see our favorite groups at, and getting a chance to hit those stages now is like totally surreal, and something that I think will always be a huge highlight and thing that we were like, holy shit, we really got to do that.